Here are the answers to the Section 4 homework assignment about parabolas. On page 311, we have to graph. So number one, we have y equals, and then this expression here has x squared. Let's rearrange this so that things are in the correct order. Y equals negative x squared plus 4x plus 7. At this point, we can leave it in standard form and graph using values of a, b, and c, or we can use completing the square to make vertex form and then graph it using the values of h and k. I'm going to leave it in standard form. The leading coefficient gets us the value of a, it's negative 1. This number in front of x is the b, it's 4. This number on the end is the c, it's a 7. Then we can find the x-coordinate of the vertex point using the formula negative b divided by 2a. So that's negative 4 divided by negative 2, and that reduces to 2. Then we can get the y-coordinate of the vertex by substituting that answer 2 into the original problem. Seven plus 8 is 15. 15 subtract 4 makes 11. We discovered our vertex dot is at 2, 11. Let's make an xy table. And in the center row, use 2, and then y was 11. Going to the left from 2, it's 1, then 0. Going to the right, it's 3, then 4. Now substitute a 3 into the original equation. Right there, and evaluate the answer. So 7 plus 12 is 19, and 19 minus 9 makes 10. This one here will turn out to be 10. Next, substitute in either the 4 or the 0 in the original equation. I'm going to fill in the 0. This is 7 plus 0, take away 0. So this turns out to be 7, and this will also be 7. Now graph those dots. So 0, 7 is located right there. 1, 10 here. 2, 11 right there. 3, 10 and 4, 7. Then graph in the parabola shape. For greater accuracy, you can even take the time to figure out what x is when y is 0. That'll allow you to cross the x-axis in exactly the correct spot and over here in exactly the correct spot. I did not do that, so I could be a little bit off of where I'm crossing through the x-axis. Number 3, this is a quadratic equation as well because the highest degree is 2. But this time notice that the letter x is linear and it's the letter y that has the squaring. This will make a parabola, but the parabola will be on its side. Let's make an xy table. When you look at this side of the equation, there is no y term alone and no constant term. That is, when x is 0, y will also be 0. That's the vertex. Put that in the middle row of the table. Then go down from 0 and up from 0 so that that 0 ends up in the middle between this one, and the 0 is in the middle between this one and this one. The reason I'm choosing numbers for y is because I have this other equation type where I'm going to plug in answers for y on the right side, figure out what this makes, and that will tell me what x is equal to. So let's substitute in a 1. We have 3 times 1 squared. That makes 3. And so will this. Now let's substitute in a 2. Right there where y is, put a 2. So we'll have 3 times 2 squared. That makes 12. And this will be 12 as well. Now we can graph. Over 12, down 2. Second row, over 3, down 1. Third row is the 0, 0. Fourth row, over 3, up 1. And the final row, over 12, up 2. Here is our sideways opening parabola. Number 5, we have that same situation, a sideways opening parabola because it's the letter x that's alone and it's the y that ends up being squared. Because of the negative value in front, it's actually going to be a parabola that opens up facing to the left. This has the format of vertex form. The general version of vertex form is x equals a times y minus k squared plus h. And again, h and k will get you your vertex. So in our problem, let's figure out our different values. This negative right here gets us our a. It's -1. Right in here will get us our value of k. Be really careful with this. K is -1. K is not 1 right here. K is -1. Because y take away -1 is how this would say plus. On the end, there is no number, so h is 0. Our h and k will get us our vertex. So our first dot is 0, -1. We can graph that right now or later, but here it is on the grid. Now let's make an XY table to get other dots. In the middle row is our vertex, 0, -1. Now, in which column are we going to fill numbers in? Column X here or column Y? Because of how this equation looks, it's the second column where we're going to write some numbers down. Go backwards, -2, -3, and then go forward from -1, 0, and then 1. Then substitute these values into the original equation. For instance, let's fill in the 0. 0 plus 1 makes 1. 1 squared makes 1, and in front of that is a negative, so that's -1. This right here will turn out to be -1 as well. Now let's fill in a 1 for y. 1 plus 1 makes 2. 2 to the second power makes 4, and in front of that is a negative. This is -4. When you fill -3 in and work it out, you'll also get -4. Now let's graph those dots. So go to -4 and then down 3. Then -1, -2. 0, -1, I already located. -1, 0 is here. And left 4, up 1 is here. Here is the sideways parabola. Number 7. What kind of parabola is this going to be? It's a sideways parabola, and because the leading coefficient is positive, it's going to open to the right. So we know ahead of time it has this general shape. This is not in vertex form, so we can use completing the square to change to vertex form, or we can use the values of a, b, and c. I'm going to use a is 1, b is -4, and c is 1 to get the y coordinate of my vertex. Let's use -b divided by 2a. So this is 4 divided by 2 equals 2. Then to figure out what x is, substitute in 2 in place of y in the original equation. 2 squared is 4. 4 minus 8 is -4. And then plus 1 makes -3. So we figured out our vertex is -3, 2. Let's make an XY chart. And in the middle row, x was -3, y was 2. In what column will we put some numbers in right now? In column Y. So going backwards, it goes 1, then 0, and going forward from 2, it goes 3 and then 4. Now let's substitute some of these numbers in. I'm going to put in the 1. So 1 squared makes 1. 1 take away 4 is -3, and -3 plus 1 is -2. And this will be -2 also. Now fill in 0. This is 0, this is 0, and then you just have plus 1 left. So this is 1, and this is 1. Now we can graph. 1, 0 is a dot. -2, 1 is a dot. -2, 3 is a dot. and negative 3 comma 2 is a dot, and 1 comma 4 is a dot. Here's the parabola. Number 9, the letter x is alone, it's the y that's squared. This is a sideways opening parabola. Let's rearrange it so the terms go in decreasing order of degree. So the negative 2y squared first, then the negative 4y, then the plus 5. This has a negative leading coefficient, so the sideways parabola will open like that. This is not in vertex form, so let's use the technique of using the value of a is negative 2, the value of b is negative 4, and the value of c is 5 to get our vertex. So y vertex equals negative b over 2a. This makes 4 over negative 4, and that makes negative 1. Now let's get x vertex by substituting negative 1 in place of y in the original problem. So we have 5 minus 4 times negative 1 minus 2 times negative 1 squared. Turns out to be 7. Now we can make our xy table. And in the middle row of the table, x is 7 when y was negative 1. In the y column, count backwards from negative 1 and forward from negative 1. Now substitute these numbers into the original problem. Let's fill in 0. This term will be 0, this term will be 0. We only have the 5. And this will be 5 as well. Now let's fill in 1. Right there and right there. So 5 minus 4 makes 1, and then minus 2 makes negative 1. And this will be negative 1. Now let's graph it. Look at the different x coordinates that we need. We need to get from negative 1 all the way to positive 7. Look at the y values. The smallest one showing up is negative 3. The largest one is positive 1. Now let's graph the dots. Left 1, down 3. Over 5, down 2. Over 7, down 1. Over 5, up 0. And left 1, up 1. Then graph in the U shape. We got a lot of sideways parabolas in this assignment. And that's how this is different from the parabolas that you were graphing in the last chapter. All of those equations said y equals, and it was the x that was squared. A lot of the ones we did today, it said x equals, and it was the y that was squared. But notice how the techniques are the same. When we have standard form, but in the letter y, we still figure out a, b, and c. We still use the formula negative b over 2a to get started. It's just that we're finding a y coordinate instead of getting an x coordinate when we get started. Number 15, determine the equation of a parabola. We're given the focus point and the directrix line. It doesn't say to graph it, but let's make a quick sketch so we can visualize what's going on. So 1, 2, 3, 4, here's a dot called point F, the focus of the parabola. 1, 2, 3, 4, here's negative 4, and it's a vertical line. Midway between the focus and the directrix will be the vertex. So that ends up right here at 0, 0. That's point V, the vertex. And let's make a quick sketch. We won't try to be accurate, but the parabola will wrap around the focus and look generally like this. That's what we need to make the equation of. Because this is a sideways opening parabola, which opens to the right, the general form is x equals 1 over 4p times y minus k squared plus h, where h and k are the vertex, and the letter p is representing the distance from the vertex to the focus. Let's make some substitutions. We have x equals 1 over. We want to go 4 times p. Well, what is the value of p? The distance from the vertex to the focus. It is 4 units. So 4 times 4 is 16. And then y take away 0 squared plus 0. Those zeros don't really do anything, so we can simplify to x equals 1/16 y squared. Number 17, let's make the equation for a parabola with this focus and this directrix. Again, let's make a graph so we can visualize what's going on. Here is -3, 4. That's point F, the focus. Crossing the y-axis at a height of 6 is our directrix line. Exactly halfway between the focus and the directrix is where the vertex dot is. We call that V for vertex. So our parabola is going to wrap around the focus, an angle away from the directrix line. It has this basic look to it. We want to make an equation for that parabola. So the general form is y equals -1 over 4p times x minus h squared plus k, where the h comma k is the vertex and the letter p is the distance between the focus and the vertex. Why do you think the negative is at the beginning? That's because it opens downwards. So let's make our substitutions. Y equals -1 over. Let's figure out what P is. What is the distance between F and V? That's just 1 unit. So 4 times 1 is 4. Minus, and then x minus -3 squared plus 5. Now where's the -3 and 5 coming from? That's h and k. Those are the coordinates of the vertex. The vertex was point V in our picture. It's left to -3 and it's up at a height of 5. Because of this double negative right there, we can fix that. So -1/4 times x plus 3 squared plus 5. To make these equations, we have to know general models. We have to know this, or at least have it written in notes that we can access. And on the previous one, we needed to know this general model, or have it in our notes that we could look at. For the review assignment, let's go back and do some work with circles. We're asked to give the equation of a circle. That also relies on knowing a general model. So for a circle, it's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Make the substitutions. X minus -2. And over here, y minus 0. And for r squared, it's 1. Now let's fix the double negative and just write y squared here and say equals to 1. Number 4, same idea. So x minus the -9, and then in the other parentheses, it's y minus the -3, and then it's equal to r squared, so 1/2 squared, that's 1/4. Now fix those double negatives. For number 12, we're asked to graph this. This is going to be a circle. It's not a parabola because both of the letters are squared. This has the general form, where the center is at 0, 0, and the radius is the square root of the 16, which is a 4. So from the center, go out 4 in all directions. And then carefully draw in a circle with your pencil that looks nice and round. Now page 305. This is where we were studying perpendicular. So this symbol right here means perpendicular. We're asked, what is the slope of a line that's perpendicular to a line through those dots? Well, first we need to find the slope of the line through those dots. The formula is change in y divided by change in x. Y is changing from 3 to 7. That's 4 units. X is changing from -1 to -2. That's decreasing 1 unit. So this reduces to -4. Now that we know that answer, we can get the slope of a perpendicular. It is the negative reciprocal of that. So it's positive 1/4. Now we have page 302, question 4. It talks about a right triangle, so I've drawn one, and it doesn't tell us specifically how long the sides are, but it says that the legs are in a 3 to 4 ratio. So I can model them with expressions. This is 3 times x, and this is 4 times x. We also know that the area of the right triangle is 150. So let's use the area formula for a triangle. 1/2 base times height, and make substitutions. 150 is the area, the base is 4x, and the height is 3x. Then simplify the right side. 1/2 of 4x is 2x, and 2x times 3x is 6x squared. Now divide both sides by 6, and we get 25 is equal to x squared. Now solve for x by doing a square root. We're actually not going to do the negative square root of 25 because we don't want to get a negative number on the side of a triangle. So we just get 5 is equal to x. Now that we know the answer for x, we know the real numbers for the sides. 3 times 5 is 15. 4 times 5 is 20. The question asks us, how long is the hypotenuse? Let's call it c, and use the Pythagorean theorem. C squared equals a squared plus b squared. For the letter A, fill in the 20. And for the letter B, fill in the 15. Then find out this answer. 20 squared is 400. 15 squared is 225. So that makes 625. Now take the square root to get the letter C alone. Again, I'm not going to do a negative square root because the side of a triangle can't be negative. The square root of 625 is 25. Last question. We have 2 dots, and we're not going to take the time to graph them, but we still want to figure out where's the point exactly in the middle. So let's use the midpoint formula. To find the midpoint, maybe we'll call it M, we're going to average the x values together. That means add them together, divide by 2. And average the y values. Add them together, divide by 2. Let's see what we get when we do this. 5 plus -12 is -7, and divide by 2. That's -7/2. Now the y values. 3 plus 3 is 6, divided by 2, you're back to a 3. There's the midpoint. Now we're going to get the distance using the distance formula. So it's a square root, and then you're finding the change in x and squaring it, and you're finding the change in y and squaring it. What is the change in x? -12 take away 5 is -17 units. What's the change in y? 3 take away 3 is 0 units. This makes 17.